Well, Tao, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, and welcome to History House. It's great. It's an honour to have you here.
It's fantastic building, isn't it?
Yeah, and it'll be even better soon.
Oh, you're gonna no. I was gonna say you're gonna renovate, but obviously you're not gonna renovate. You're gonna upgrade.
Well, yes, the back bit. You know,
the back bit, right?
The 1970s bit. Yes. But look, I thought I might just start asking you just a pretty general question.
Yeah.
If you just tell us a little bit about your professional training and education, like how you came to be an architect and who influenced you.
No, that's really interesting because I was actually a sheet metal worker.
Yeah.
Right? And I was on a construction job, and an engineer told me that he was right and I was wrong because he'd gone to university. And so I thought, bloody hell, I'll go to university. So I went to university, not knowing what to do, of course, because I always thought people were smarter than me. And I took physics and math. And I got an honours degree in physics and mathematics and a minor in English literature, actually. Oh. And so then what I did is I actually looked around for a job, right? And it was very difficult because as a sheet metal worker, I was making more money than a graduate.
Yes.
And so I eventually got a job as a geologist, geophysicist in the northern part of Canada, having never taken a course in geology in my life.
Oh.
Anyway, after a couple of years of that, I got tired with that, and I decided to do another course, right? And so I applied at the University of British Columbia, again, and of course there you apply to faculties, and I applied to 4 different faculties, and eventually it came between law and architecture. And of course law was all blue blazers and, up the nose. Architecture were all in blue jeans, and I thought, baby, this is for me.
Yeah, right choice.
Right choice. But this school was really strange. The head of the school came up on the first day and said, I'm not going to teach you how to design, I'm not going to teach you how to draw, I'm not going to teach you how to do beams. He says, hopefully, I'm going to teach 20 of you how to think. I wasn't one of the lucky ones, of course. See, but this school worked on the basis that you should not look at magazines, you should look at the parameters and the actual questions and conditions of the brief and solve through that. Don't look at a fashion magazine and say, gee, I really like that house. Right? Solve the problem. So then, of course, halfway through the school, we decided we're going to have because I really was a builder, I decided we'd have an advisory clinic. So we started up an advisory clinic and we designed houses for people, even though we were only second-year students. It worked really great.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, when you actually look, I designed about 6 or 7 houses in that period before I actually even graduated, right? And I even built one. And of course, I forgot to tell you that when I was 18 years old, I built my first house. Completely no idea what I was doing, but it worked. I mean, there it was easy because, I mean, I did the drawings on paper, and the guy at the council says, do you know you're supposed to have transparent paper? I said, oh. He said, but don't worry about it. He says, I can still print it. You know, it took 3 hours to get that document, those houses approved.
Really?
Yeah, it was really, wow. I mean, hey, this would have been 58. No, 59. Okay. Right? And so it was really great. I mean, it was, and this whole idea was that you actually looked at the problem and you solved the problem. When the 40 of us that actually eventually ended up at the end of the 4th year, we were just saying, well, we're just good enough to be architects. I mean, we haven't got any other abilities. But it was a fantastic school, right? Because if you think linearly, and you just cannot understand what's going on, right? So this is what the course is like. And of course, at the end of that, I would then finish off a couple of jobs, and then I asked my wife to marry me, and she said, no way am I going to live in Canada because I'm going to freeze my feet off, which she actually did in northern Canada one time. So we came to Australia. And then, of course, and then I worked for Hanson Todd Littlemore, and the reason I worked for them, because I got a job, because they were working in the Opera House.
Oh, okay, you're right.
Yeah, except they were doing the project management. Every young architect wants to design, right? So then I worked for Jackson T. Cheston and Willis, and then I got a job with the Department of Housing, right? And of course, it was really funny. I mean, Ted Mack, Ted Mack. Well, he actually hired me, but the day I started, he quit. Now, I don't know if that was me or what it was, but it was certainly something.
Yes.
Anyway.
Correlation.
Yeah, but the point is, because he had said to me, he gave me the top of grade 1, right? And he sort of said to me, look, I'm really sorry, but we'd really like to have you, but I can only give you, because that's the only thing that's available. So 3 months later, the grade 2 comes up. And I apply, and they say, well, come on, you've just been to grade 1. And I said, well, the guy that hired me said that I should have a grade 2. And they gave me a grade 2. Now, in the Department of Housing, it used to take 15 to 20 years to become a grade 3.
Yeah, right.
It took me 3 years.
Ooh, this is very good.
I know. I mean, look, talking is the most important thing in architecture.
Oh yeah, and in public service. See, I take it from some of the things you're saying then that one of the factors that's important in the way that you work is an understanding of the place that's where the building's going to be. Like you put the igloo, don't put it where the rocks of glass, put it here and so on.
And the perception of people and how you then adapt your perception to that, right?
Yes,
because I mean that we also spent the first 3 months of the first year in Venice.
Oh yeah, right.
Again, it's a top 3 floors of hotels.
You're doing well.
Yeah, and so of course that was interesting because we then went around and we went down to Venetia and we went to Acamara in northern Spain to look at the caves, right?
Oh yeah.
See, and that of course that comes out later on in Sirius, right?
Yes, I don't want to ask
and so this school, we could not get a job in Vancouver, but everywhere else it was no problem because we were all the better people, better is were really good at talking and ideas. And of course, we were never, like in Australia, a lot of the architects are actually really very, very good draftsmen and very good perspective drawers.
Yeah, right, okay.
Well, we got to remember, at the time, New South Wales had 4,000 architects. BC, which had just about the same population, had 800.
Yeah.
See, what we were taught to actually solve problems, not draw drawings.
Yes.
Right? And I mean that was a major distinction because when I came here and started working for Hanson Todd, they wanted me to do a drawing, and I'm thinking, what the hell is the matter with these? First of all, I was lousy, right? Because I wasn't used to drawing, and especially with pen, because I did everything in pencil, right? See, and so it was a real change where, in effect, they weren't asking for your ideas. If you actually have a solution that and people don't like it because it's different, people don't like it because they don't understand it, then of course all of a sudden they use all the real arguments like, oh, people won't like it, it's too expensive, we don't have the political power, anything but we don't understand what the hell you're talking about.
Well, look, just you're thinking about that, how you see the problem of a particular environment and then how you can respond to that in a built form. Thinking of where the Sirius is and on a rocky escarpment, it's quite steep. How do you approach that with your way of thinking? Well, you've got that site.
Yeah, okay. So first of all, of course, we got all the standard conditions, right? It's got to be Housing Commission standards. It's got to be 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units. This is the people's plan. One of the comments of the people was that they didn't want a square building.
I saw that. I thought that was really interesting.
And of course, they wanted community rooms. They wanted private outdoor areas. They wanted roof gardens. So all of those things are there. Now you get onto the site. Right? And the first thing you see or hear is it's an 8 double carriage train coming in from Milson's Point, and the noise levels and the vibration on the steelwork of the approach, not the bridge, is 106 to 108 dB. Obviously, we have now got a problem, right? A noise problem. Then you actually measure the traffic from the bridge. This is the vehicular traffic. It's only about 50. Okay, so then of course you have the sloping site. You got a very narrow site, long and narrow, and of course you got the absolutely fantastic views of the harbour and the upper house. So now you've got major conditions. The other one you have is that when the building is higher than 4 stories, the western sun gets you. Right. See, so these are now. So what do you do? Well, the thing is, if you actually what I did is I said, well, okay, what we got to do is the noise level is really bad from the bridge. So what you do is you shape the building like that, so the noise hits and bounces.
Okay. Yeah.
Then, of course, the noise level from the bridge is you turn the units this way because, of course, the traffic is coming this way, produces noise in that direction. Therefore, you don't turn it like that, you turn it like that, which means that the angle of incidence is greater. Greater, less, whatever.
Yeah, you're deflecting it.
You're deflecting it more. See, so now you've got that situation. Now, of course, you've done that, so you basically have a flattish top, and you come down the other side purely to sort of balance it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're thinking, well, and of course you want to do this low because of course you don't want to go over the bridge. And you only want a small part of it to go over the bridge, and that's only really to get your numbers up.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Right? So then you go back, and of course, earlier on I'd actually designed Sans Souci, the Laurel.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
And of course there, it was really interesting because Jack Burke had really believed that if you mix bedroom categories, you get a closer approach to community. You cannot have just 1 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms, because 3 bedrooms allows you a little bit of mix because you can not have it occupied. But 1s and 2s are really bad, right? Because in effect you only get the same type of groupings. You get a lady with maybe a child or a husband and a child, but you get very selective groups. You don't get grandmothers and grandfathers because of course they always help create a community. So in effect he wanted to have 1, 2, 3 and 4 bedroom units plus age units plus lots of community space, right? And of course private courtyard areas, and of course they came out of the roof too. The other thing we realized, right, is that 95% of all the people saw the building from the road. So therefore we developed what we call the 5th elevation. Because most of the time, up until that time, most buildings were going choom, choom. Don't worry about the top. And we realized that this was important, right? So we made sure that was true. And of course then what we did is we put roof gardens, because of course the split levels allowed us to do that. Having got the shape again, having got those skins, we then said, okay, one module is a living room, a laundry and a kitchen, and the other module is 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. And by splitting them, you can actually have 2 there, and make it a 4. You can have 2 there and make it a 2. You can have 2 there and 1 there, make it that a 3, and the other one links up into a 1. So you get all the combinations. And then, of course, basically it was a matter of sort of saying, well, we want to put the 4s on the ground floor so we have courtyards. We want to put some 3s on the ground floor, and we want to put 3s on the roof with roof gardens, and some of the 2s. So it was a matter of going click, 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 check a Lego set, you see?
Oh, they're modules, aren't they?
Yeah, they're just modules.
Arrange them.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they're all mostly split level. But the point is, you can actually have a 4, a 3. You can have all combinations, but without actually changing a module. Right? See, so then it was just a matter of like a Lego set. You go clink, 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 clink. Oh yeah, that's a 4. Click, 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 click. Oh, that's a 3. Right? And the shape just grows out of it. And of course, in the low rise, you just have central stairs, right? Very much like the Sans Souci project, right? You have a central stair and you can have 4 or 5 units. At the far end, i.e. the north end, you can actually, because it's an 8-meter drop, you can have 2 or 3 units lower down, so that in fact you come in at level 3, you go up 2, you go down 2, right? And so in effect you can build those in. And then, of course, at the other levels, you just have the standard 3-bedroom, well, 3.5, right? And of course, right at the far end, you have a 4-bedroom unit with 2 courtyards and a roof garden, right? Which was the best unit, actually.
Yes, it was your one.
It was a fantastic unit. Yeah, and of course, I know people seem to think it's difficult, but it wasn't difficult. You understand what I mean?
No, I do, it's interesting what you were saying before about that, and I've read a little bit about this, the philosophy of the Housing Commission, or of Jack Burke in particular, I'm not quite sure which one it is.
Jack Burke,
but about what was important about building new places, was that the community was mixed. There was, you know, young and old. Yeah. There were families and there were singles.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying there is that by that modular sort of approach, you can make the built form actually reflect and
the community
what they want.
Yeah.
Yes.
And of course, the other thing too is they tried to do it in the greenfield sites, you know, like in Mount Druitt. But of course, the problem is that then it became states management saying, I don't want to put a family with only one child in a 3-bedroom, because we can put a family with 3 children in a 3-bedroom, right? See, in effect, so even though we designed, and I mean, when I say designed, I see the Housing Commission designed to try and accommodate that, states management, being money oriented, started pushing so in effect now you start getting the opposite. You all have nothing but large families. Right?
Which is defeating the philosophy that you're talking about.
And of course the thing is, of course, in the flats, okay, of course that doesn't work at all. And of course the other thing, I mean, to be fair, Sirius had a really advantage, isn't that when we finished it, we already had a community, because the people from the Rocks area had been a community for years and years and years. So when they moved in, they already had the nucleus of a community, right? Yeah. And the other thing too is they also, considering the quality of the building at the time, they really thought this was fantastic, right? Right. And so in effect they came in, and then of course the rest of the people, because there was only say 35 families from the Rocks, and the rest were just standard Housing Commission tenants. Right. But of course we went through those very carefully, because of course why do you want to give a person a roof garden if they don't want a bloody garden? You know, so there was a bit of selection there. But eventually of course because the quality of the building at the time was superb, the people really started to enjoy and want to be in the building. I mean, the thing is, the only time you ever got a new tenant in the age units is when one of them died. You know, and there was a 10-year waiting list. On now, of course, now 10-year waiting list is normal, right? But I mean, at the time in the 70s, a 3-year waiting list was considered very bad. But in effect, there was a 3-year waiting list for getting a house in, not so much in there, but in a cottage, right? See, so, and it came together. Of course, the real problem and the real issue is that Jack Burke, this is not Monday, Jack Burke basically wanted to keep this sort of, not so much the aesthetic, but the concept, right? The concept of splits and mixing, wanted to keep it going. But he, of course, he was very, very sick. He retired and he died very, very soon afterwards. And of course, the problem is then the politicians, the public servants that were actually politician lackeys, took over.
Look, you're just talking a bit about the residents, right? And I just wanted to, there was and there still is criticism of Sirius from, many who have opinions that aren't necessarily well informed. But I'd like to read a quote I found here, and it's in some Housing Commission material from 1979. And it was one of the tenants when they'd first moved in there. And there was a mother with several children, and she says, Sirius reminds me of a swallow's nest from my childhood. The sheltering earth-coloured surrounds of the windows, the way the separate units cling closely but are individual, the irregular line of the building appealed to the country girl in her. They look, well, natural, she said.
Is that? I had never heard that.
Yes, and it seems to me that from a lot that I've read, but I thought that encapsulated it, the residents always valued what you did.
Oh, yeah.
And that must, I wonder, does that outweigh the criticism from other...
Yeah, because the criticisms were, one, people only seeing it from the bridge. Yeah. Right. The criticisms also were that people that were companies that were getting kicked out of their free accommodation didn't like it much. That's into the motion.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And can I ask you, what do you think about? I'd read somewhere that you had originally envisaged about the colour of the building. It's grey now.
Well, see,
what was you thinking about that?
That was really stupid. That was really stupid. Because what happened is we're building and we've got the podium on the ground, right? We haven't got the walkways or anything like that. And what happens is the quantity surveyors, right, come to me and they say, look, we're going to be $200,000 over budget. And what we should do is you should take the white cement out and put gray cement in, right? And I should have just talked to Frank, to Jack, but I didn't. And I was thinking, okay, because I mean, let's be totally honest, I really wanted this building now to go ahead, right? So I agreed. And so they took and of course, that's why it's grey as against whitish. I mean, it still wouldn't be totally white. But it would
that's what I thought. Still, over time, the patina and age would have.
But I mean, but the point is, I mean, it would have been whiter. Yeah. The other thing, of course, which really cheesed me off later on, is that we're doing the building and we've blocked off Gloucester Walk, right? Yep. Because obviously it's dangerous. And then when we start looking at Gloucester Walk, is that the railings are really badly corroded, right? Yeah. And so the chairman said, look, he says, we can't do that because we've got to, I mean, first of all, we have to have a nice presentation. So what they do is we allow an extra $250,000 to pave Gloucester Walk and put new railings up. And I'm pretty sure I could have got him I could have got $200,000 extra for that. Because then what we do is the chairman starts saying, like, we actually had a fountain in the center, right? Right. The plumbing is still there, by the way. Yeah. And of course, the other thing is that we now have got the community rooms, right? And you've seen pictures of the community, you know. And so now what happens is we've got it bush hammered, which is on the inside, and of course we got a space which is low down and then high up, which is reminded me very much of the caves at Altamara. You're right. And I'm thinking, what we should do is do some bit of cave art. Penny Rosier, who was working in my group for a while, she's an architect at Epping. She's a really fantastic drawer, knows how to draw very nicely. And so I'm explaining this, and we're sort of she's doing a few sketches, and we then make some samples. We make a concrete sample, half scale, an inverse negative sample, a fiberglass sample, and a Kari timber sample. And we say, and we're going to put these on the walls, right? To show it's cave art. And so, of course, the chairman and we go to the chairman because, you know, he's really involved deeply with this. And so we say, okay, what do you think? And he picks the Kari timber one, which I think was the best choice. And of course, the concrete one, well, we never put any reinforcing in, right? Because, well, we did this at home, right? We didn't do this at work. We did this at home. And Penny did a timber one. I mean, the amount of stuff we did at home was great because I was really keen. Anyway, so what happens? Of course, he puts that one in. Of course, first of all, people say, oh, gee whiz, that's really nice. The timber is beautiful, right? And so, of course, after a while, they say, what is it? What is it? What is it? And so, after about 5 years, I get tired of this, and I say it's a URO, right? Yes. Unidentified running object. Yes. And of course, it's now a URO, isn't it? Yes. Yes. Right?
I saw that you'd said that about the unidentified running object, so I had to ask you about that. And I just wonder, like, do you think that the bold colours and those designs, you see, what role do you think that plays in having imaginative art and beautiful objects in a place, in the quality of life of the people who are going to live there?
I mean, theoretically, what was going to happen is, and of course the Department of Housing has now changed it because they've painted it green because that's environmentally friendly, you know. But they did that to San Souci too. Yeah. Anyway, the point is it was going to be red, and then of course the railings, right? All the metalwork in that particular stairwell was going to be red. You know, in other words, the stairwell plus units on this side and units on that side, that was all the steelwork was going to be red. And then the next one was going to be whatever color is. I mean, the far end was blue, right? So the color changed, and gradually, of course, the purple ones,
Yeah.
We're the ones that everybody saw.
Yeah.
And of course, that was the funniest thing. I mean, here we are, and of course, some media guy comes up to me, totally out of the blue, and says, and with not giving me time to think, right? Because and he says, why purple? And instead of course, explaining the range,
Yeah.
I said, because I like it, right?
Yeah.
The guy never actually realized what the gradation in color was. And of course, we actually had 2 or 3 gradations, and we allowed the chairman to pick the one he wanted, right? See,
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Right, but I mean, because we had a really dark blue to indigo, right, which really didn't come. I mean, this one came off all right?
Yeah.
Because the thing is, we didn't really want, because you see, the numbers were supposed to be the same, different colors, right? The railings were supposed to be different colors. The whole thing was supposed to actually, so that you didn't actually look like you had a big building, but you had small buildings.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? You see?
And so, would you, with work you did on Sirius and even the Laurels at Sans Souci, I mean, do you have things built into that take account that's not going to be maintained?
Well, I mean, concrete, for example.
Yeah.
Right? Concrete is acoustically fantastic. It's long. It's maintenance. Well, not maintenance free, but basically maintenance free. And especially, of course, is at the same time, or just before that, we had actually had a major problem. Sorry, when I say we, I mean the housing commission. Okay.
Yeah.
They had a major problem in concrete cancer in the Captain Cook buildings, and they spent $17 million fixing it.
Yeah.
We realized, of course, that one of the reasons is that one, the cover was minimal, and two, they acid etched it,
Yeah.
which of course is really stupid.
Yeah. Right.
And so we actually said, okay, we can't do that. So we worked out that we were going to have 50 to 60 mil cover and no acid etching, right? And that's why, of course, there's a few tiny spots of concrete cancer, but they're very few. And of course, the amount of steel in the panels, it's got 75, 80 mil cover most of the time, right? See, so in effect, so we solved that whole concrete cancer issue by, in effect, doing that, right? And you know, and for example, like, if you build a building and use mastic, it's going to fail. Doesn't matter what you do, it's going to fail.
Yeah.
And so we decided, no, we're not going to do that. So what we did is we put spaces between the panel and the wall, and the spaces are like that, and we have a brass strip across there so that the water goes in, runs down the brass strip, and out the bottom. And so there's no negative positive pressures, and there's no water going in. So now we've got a solution that doesn't take mastic.
But like I see plenty of architects who are quite insulting towards you.
Oh yeah.
When you were working on this, and especially once the height started to be able to be seen from the bridge, right? And I look at this. You know, there's a Housing Commission publication, another one in 1976, and it said the site is on Bunkers Hill. And quote, it's named after the father of Australian whaling, whose royalist principles brought him to Sydney after the American War of Independence. And then includes a photo of the QE2 docking, right, in Sydney Cove. And it says, this is the impressive backyard for the new housing project. And so, that suggests to me,
well, this is
the project is intended to be something very special for the local community. It's not just run-of-the-mill stuff. And a few years later, in 1979, one of the community defenders of the Sirius, in a letter to the Herald, said, I cannot help detecting hints of a more general resentment which is perhaps levelled at those people who might win a place in this unique setting, people who ordinarily would never afford harbourside accommodation. And I just wonder, like, how much do you think of that criticism was driven by snobbishness, condescension, even professional jealousy, and what does that really say about Sydney's?
I don't know about professional jealousy, but certainly, I mean, I've had people come up and basically say, why should these people have harbour views?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, not hint, just say it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the point...
just that exactly comes so through.
And I mean, even now, it comes through.
Yeah, it does.
Right? That you need, in a community, you need people, you need nurses, you need ambulance drivers, you need policemen, you need firemen, right? and most importantly, and this is my standard joke here, but you need baristas, because otherwise,
absolutely.
Otherwise, what happens is you get rich people that are sick and can't get their morning coffee.
And they won't come into the city anymore.
Oh, yeah, that's right. No, and of course the point is, because if you don't have all of those people, you have a concrete jungle without the color of community.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It really, it's stupid, right? And the point is, of course, they don't seem to realize that you need ordinary. Okay, let's use the term ordinary people to fulfill all the service functions, right? I mean, the people that are on $250,000 a year and up, right, don't want to make their own coffee. They don't want to do their own typing, right?
Just sort of sideways from that, the views from the apartments and the big windows, I mean, they're quite spectacular. And I wonder, is that something that had ever been done with public housing before?
Probably not.
No, I can't.
But do you know why that came about, though?
No, don't tell me.
Oh, well, see, comes back to Sans Souci, right? What happens is I designed this, and Frank Roll, who's the chief architect of the Department of Housing, basically doesn't like it, right? And so I think, okay. So what I do is I decide I'm going to make a model. So I make a model out of PVC.
Yeah.
Okay, but I've got to make the windows, right? Now my wife at the time was working for food technology place, can't think of the name, and she basically said, and I got her to go to write to Revlon or phone them out and get 48 boxes, Revlon boxes of eyeshadow boxes, and they were about that big.
Yeah.
And I used them for the windows, right? So the scale of the model that was worked on the windows, it was 73.6 to 1, right? Not 100, not 50, nothing, 73.6 to 1. And so I used those ones, and of course I made that model, and you've actually probably seen pictures of it. And so then, of course, what happened, I take it in Friday afternoon, and of course, Frank and a couple of other techs are putting Victorian fronts on them, you know what I mean? Little cutouts, you know, but the thing is, I don't really care, right? So I leave it on my desk, because Jack Bird goes around at 5 or 6 o'clock at night on Friday night and looks to see what everybody's doing.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Well, he always did.
Make sure you leave the right thing there then.
Yeah, and so, no, of course. And so I leave the model there, and of course, 9 o'clock on Monday morning, Jack comes along and he says, how's this working? And I said, oh, look, and I knew he was keen on 1, 2, and 3 bedroom accommodation. I said, see, this here is a 1 bedroom, and that's a 3 bedroom, and there's a balcony, and there's a roof garden. Oh, this is great. Oh, yeah. He says, when is it going to go? And I said, Frank doesn't like it much. He says, oh, okay. 11 o'clock, Frank comes along and says, we're going to do this job.
I really like that now.
I really like it now, yeah. And of course, and then we just document the job and start building. And of course, it's actually probably why we didn't have that much problem. It's actually load-bearing brickwork and fiber cement panels, and not concrete.
So yes,
it's very much more the conventional type of construction, right? And of course, I mean, the housing commissions repainted it once, which is okay, because they were, oranges and purples, not oranges and yellows and stuff, right? And when they painted it, they made it more acceptable and more modern, right? And that was okay. That was not a real problem. But of course, it really demonstrated how these units really worked. These modules really worked, right? And of course, people really liked it.
So I just ask you a couple of heritage questions, and we'll sort of lead towards a bit of a close. I mean, what was your immediate reaction to the minister's refusal to list, and has that changed?
Well, the point is that,
or how do you feel about that now?
Well, see, first of all, the minister used specious arguments. I mean, he used the argument that it was a brutal building, right? He obviously doesn't understand Bicon Bruton, whatever the hell, I can't even pronounce it. He doesn't understand the word brutalism, right? The point is, he didn't actually consider, because you see, Sirius is okay. It's a building that's different. It's a brutalist building, which of course you have to believe. Brutalism was not designed into it, it came out of it.
Yes,
And the other thing, of course, is you think about it, it's a symbol. It's a symbol of community action, it's a symbol of the green bands, it's a symbol of what people can do if they decide they don't like what the government does, right? It's a symbol of all of those things. It's a symbol of how you can actually have social architecture in a city that's successful. You can have, how you can make social architecture so that you have communities, right? I mean, it's a building, but it's more than a building. It's actually a statement of what can happen, right? On affordable housing, right? On social housing. I mean, the thing is, because I always get really cheesed off when people talk about affordable housing. I always refer to it as unaffordable housing. You can't say affordable housing because 50% of Australian young people cannot afford them. They're unaffordable housing, right? Now we have, when I was with the Department of Housing, we had homelessness, and we obviously had social housing problems. We didn't really have affordable or unaffordable housing. Now we have 3. Instead of 10,000 people on the waiting list, we have 60,000 people on the waiting list, right? And of course it should be heritage basically because it represents all of those things as a symbol, right?
And so look, just thinking about that, if just say, theoretically, there was a chance that the building could be kept if it had a different use. Do you think it's capable of a different use?
Well, I mean, are we talking about, like, for example, I would say, let's say we take the building, we obviously fix it up, upgrade the bathrooms, kitchens, etc., and we sell 25% or 30% or 40%, okay? And then that covers the cost and we have the rest of social housing. That's one.
Okay, right.
Secondly, we could actually say, okay, we're going to, again, spend all the time fixing it up, but we're going to actually have this as temporary accommodation for emergency situations.
And is it possible for a mix of, say, residential and non-residential?
Well, I mean, you could even, you could say have, let's say you could do all the split levels, all this as residential, right? Then you could do obviously the single bedroom units facing west could be pensioner units, and then the rest could be even accommodate, like some of the apartments on Oxford Street are actually like hotels.
Oh yeah.
Right? You could do that, right? So you could, and of course, I mean, you could turn the community room into a restaurant. That'd be fantastic. Yeah. Right? And of course, there's a community room on the 8th floor.
I thought there's a Phillip room. There's a heritage room. There's is there a McEwen room or something?
William McKell.
McKell, sorry.
Yeah. And then of course the William McKell ones. Well, that was interesting because we actually on the 16th of May 1981, which is the 40th anniversary of William McKell's being elected as Premier of this state. I know all these
important things to know.
We named that room the William McKell building, right? The William McKell community room. Right? And I mean, because I remember that because we had to have this plaque, right? And I actually had a little set of curtains.
Oh, I see.
Right? So like he could sit there and pull the wire, and the curtains opened up like this, and there was the plaque, right? It was really quite interesting. And Terry Sheehan was there. He was the Minister of Housing at the time. And so, but I mean, we had all sorts. I mean, we had a 23rd of March, 1980, the Housing Commission had an opening. And we decided we would have an opening and we would actually have a survey. Now, you know yourself, surveys, I mean, you can do anything with a survey. But this survey was, what do you think? That's pretty hard to figure. Okay. 85% of the people said, wow, and boy, these guys are getting it good. But nicely. 5% said, oh, we could improve it here, improve it there. I'm pretty sure they were architects. But 10% absolutely hated it. I mean, it didn't fit into the area. Why were these bloody people getting this fantastic accommodation with, what I mean? Really, and I mean, but some of it was vitriolic. Really, they didn't like it much. But 10% was definitely a no-no, right? But 90% was reasonable. Right? And of course, all the tenants were part of the 85%. They thought all the Christmases had come at once. They did. So it was, and it was a reasonable survey. And of course, after we finally named the building, there was still more comments. The best comment I always liked, and I actually thought for a long time was a compliment, Norman Day. He was a critic from Melbourne, right? And he basically said that he looked at the building, he thought that a bunch of droogs had designed it for a scene in Clockwork Orange.
Yes.
And I actually thought for a long time this was the best compliment I'd ever received. He, of course, didn't think so.
No, I think you should take it as a compliment.
It was. I mean, the Droogs to be able to design something that were good. They're pretty smart Droogs.
Well, they were indeed. I just sort of like to look a bit to the future. A couple of things there. Sirius. Look, it sits in that. It's framed, by the Opera House and the Harbour Bridge. So, and I just wonder how you see Gofers fitting with Utzon and Bradfield, into the future.
God. I mean, I know we talk about Utzon and we talk about whatever the hell his name is. Yeah, but the thing is, I don't actually think that's that important. I don't think the names of the people are important. I mean, I think the solution. I mean, the Opera House. I mean, absolutely magnificent, right? And the opera, and of course, the bridge at the time was an engineering marvel, right? I mean, one of the things which they stole them all. I had photographs of the bridge being built on every foyer.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course they I don't know where they went. And of course, on the 8th floor where you can actually see the bridge is the last link, as you know how they built that. They had cables, and of course, if you go into the tunnels at Wynyard, you can still see the blocks, and the connections where they had the cables holding up the bridge, so it wouldn't tip in. Yeah. And of course, I had all of those photographs, and those photographs were really fantastic. We, got nice photographs. We put it all down, and of course, they all disappeared. I don't know why, right? But they just disappeared. Yeah, they disappeared. But I mean, that's the sort of stuff you could always put back in, right?
Yeah. But just with names, did you have some role in the name Sirius?
Well, but Jack Brooke.
Okay.
Jack had a thing about naming, and he basically, well, for example, when we were building 8-unit complexes, he decided he would name the common room in each one of these as in an Aboriginal name of the local areas, right? He took that and he said, what we've got to do is this is actually, he believed this was a first for him. Yeah. And he actually basically from that said, well, then what we should do is we should name it after one of the ships. Yeah. Right? And of course then it became, it was either, Fellowship, I think was one of them, Sirius was another. It was 3 or 4 names, right? And we had we had a sort of a session. Okay, where we actually all, Penny and myself and Jack and David Phillips, basically, and we sort of talked about it. And of course, we basically agreed, and the chairman still had overriding authority, of course. We basically agreed on Sirius because it was sharp and short and sharp. And so Sirius, after elimination and discussion, we talked. We had coffee and tea, and we talked for about a couple of hours.
I can imagine.
About until we finally decided what it was.
I always think Sirius is a fine name for myself, because it's both the supply ship in the First Fleet, but more than that, it's the brightest star in the night sky, it's the navigator's friend, it's what got the Polynesians across the Pacific for hundreds of years. I think it's a fantastic name.
And that's right, and of course that was some of the reasoning, right, that it was, and of course, because Jack, unfortunately he got sick and retired, he really wanted to build more of these. He really not so much the design, but the modular system, right? And he could have easily done the modular system and had a Victorian front on it, right? Or a modern townhouse front, right? But he really wanted to have this ability to mix and match and do it everywhere, right? And he wanted to go for medium density stuff, right? And of course the point is that when he, of course, retired, the whole thing just fell apart, right?
Back in the 70s, the building, Sirius in particular, shaped by ideas about community and place. But today, we talk a lot about individual gain and material accumulation, and conversation is often dominated by property value rather than making homes, right? And I wonder, do you think it's possible that another Sirius could ever be designed in that way and built again in the inner city?
In today's terms?
Yes.
Well, you see, the thing is, of course, is our whole society is now based on money, accumulation of wealth, right? And of course, this is why, you can understand why people on welfare go out of their way to make us get as much as possible, because the CEOs do it.
That's right.
And of course the society says the more money you get, the more important you are, right? And so I think it would be very difficult, right? Although, see, if, for example, Barangaroo.
Oh, Barangaroo. Yeah.
Barangaroo has to have 56 social housing units. Okay. Now the point is, let me ask you a question. You've just paid $10 million for this apartment, and the guy next door pays $140 a week.
Yeah.
You're not too happy. I mean, no matter how socially conscious you are, right? And so the thing is, what it does actually, it reduces the value by having those 56 there. So why not build a special set of units, right? Or even buy Sirius.
Yeah, that's an idea.
But buy Sirius, and in effect you then 56. Some other contractor's going to have to buy 10 or 12. Eventually you get 79, and now you've got social units for 79. You have to set up some sort of trust situation where you can operate them. And I mean, that would be a really logical thing to do.
Yes, yeah.
Right? See, and the other thing too is, when you think about it, let's assume that we demolish. First of all, they're going to have to get the housing. The council has actually limited the roof shape, right? In other words, the building envelope is exactly the same.
What it is,
you know. I mean, that was done afterwards. But the point is, there's logical reasons why we can make housing affordable, right? I mean, and it isn't just one thing; it's a whole bunch of things.
This is my last question. Then I've got something just a bit open for you. So, look, if for reasons that we can't quite see at this time, the building does survive, it doesn't get demolished. If we could jump into a TARDIS and we could travel 1,000 years into the future to 3017, how well do you think this building will have survived then?
Well, I'll tell you something. There's not much that can go wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, the concrete structure is fantastic, right? I mean, all the walls and everything, the panels. Okay, maybe some of the internal fittings might have gone, but the point is, I mean, if somebody was to look after it, it would last at least 500 years.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, now, so I'm not going to ask you another question now. I'm just going to say, look, so in closing, is there a message or a thought that you would like to leave our viewers with?
A message?
Or a thought, or...
Yeah, okay. I'm just, let me think.
Ruminate on that.
Thinking is not my big thing. I mean, well, my real thought is that Sirius is a symbol of what could be right and could be wrong. In other words, if this building survives to become social housing, a mixture of things, then maybe we've really got an opportunity to try and solve the problems that are going to arise, right? If in effect it is demolished, then it's just the first step. It demonstrates that politicians should be the servants of the people, should not be able to sell your assets.
Thank you, Tao. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.